roles and responsibilities. I'll begin this off with a little introduction. Myself, I'm James Hicks. I'm the Public Information Officer for Franklin County. I'm the first Public Information Officer in Franklin County, some position that they finally got approved in fiscal year 22, I believe, after many years of trying to get a position. So I come in and took on other people's burdens and created it into one typical position. I would say I'm a Public Information Officer. That's a lot bigger of a role than some of the traditional things, so it's probably a little bit more like a communications director because it's a lot more broad-based than what you think of traditional Public Information Officer. And here I work very closely with Nicholas. He's a very good resource to have because he can teach PIOs and teach PIO courses, but he has a very good understanding of it. So when we had our baby earlier this year, and I was out on FMLA, I went, you take it for a couple weeks.
I only almost got fired once, that's all.
That he knows about. Big one that he knows about. So it's good to have him as a resource, because of course he knows that, especially from the emergency management side. There's some parts that I wouldn't let him touch. Economic development and things like that, which is something I'm a little bit more fluent in. A little bit about my background. I am a very different sort of path to this position. After college, I did a little bit in politics. I didn't do it on the elected side. I did it on the electing side, so I was on the campaigns. Became a magistrate judge in South Greenville, South Carolina for almost 10 years, and I hated it. I worked night shifts at the jail, 2:30 a.m. bond court, Greenville. If you don't know anything about Greenville, South Carolina, Greenville County is the most populated county in the state. So around 500,000 people live there, and all the crime comes with it. It's also one of those counties that most people live in the county and not in the city. The cities aren't that populous. I think the city of Greenville only has like 70,000, so about 76% of the population lives in the county, so it creates a huge burden on the county to manage that. So I did that for almost 10 years, 7 days on, 7 days off. Absolutely hated it. Tried to get out as quickly as I could. It took me 10 years to do that. And what I did was I said, well, how do I go and get a job as a public information officer? Because obviously my little bit of this here, a little bit of this there isn't enough. So I went through, got my master's degree in media management from Arkansas State, 2019, hoping to get an interview. Nope, no interviews. 300 applications across the United States, nobody. So I said, well, what is in these posts for these jobs that I don't have? Experience as a journalist. All right, let's do that then. So I resigned, took a huge pay cut, became a newspaper journalist for a small daily newspaper in Greenwood, South Carolina. Family-owned paper. Was there for about a year, and I said, let's test the waters. Let's see where we're at. And then boom, oh, they want to do an interview. Oh, second round. Oh, almost got the job. Then the next guy, two rounds of interviews, almost got the job. So momentum picked up after a year and a half as a reporter, covering county government, economic development, business. I filled in on cops and courts, so I had that background. I got a job as the city clerk and public information officer for the city of Creedmoor, just about 20 minutes north of Raleigh, and took on that role. And let's just say the PIO side of that role was very small. The city clerk part was very large, and I was like, I'm getting, just burdened with all this other stuff. This is not where my career is going to be. About that time, it's probably a couple months in, I was sitting in closed session for one of our meetings, and the city manager says to the board, I know I've only been here a couple months, but I got to move back to the Midwest. My wife's help, her mom's help. We're just going to have to move back. I love it here. So I'm like, okay. So the city manager just got here, just hired me. He's going to leave. I'm not going to be the last one. stuck here when everybody leaves. So started looking kind of around, and about the same time, county councilman from Greenwood called me and said, I know we're about 4 months too late. Do you know that PIO position that I've been trying to get? We're gonna actually do it. So I go, okay. Y'all know, like the summer before I moved to North Carolina. I mean, I was perfect for the job. Went through that whole process, but just about 2 days before this job closed, I saw it. I said, Franklin County's not too far away. Let me get in there. Long story short, went through both processes. Actually chose to be here over Greenwood. Part of that, actually, the Greenwood County manager convinced me to take this job. He's from here, and he was like, "No, you need to stay there. It's more opportunities than what we can provide." So appreciate his honesty and his help for years. So that's how I got here. And creating this job, working with emergency management, working with 25, 26 departments, trying to provide the services that they needed 10 years ago. 10 years ago. So if you think about how exponentially things have grown now, it's been quite a wild ride. As Nicholas mentioned, I just went through advanced public information officer class, so I can teach that and this, basically, and I'm going to apply for the next cohort, FY25, because FY24 is already shut, and they started it this past week in Emmitsburg, Maryland. And that's the height of the public information officer training. That's as high as you can go here. So part of that is teaching a little bit. So they say, well, to teach this class, you need to have experience teaching this class. What is it? How does that make any sense? Well, it's helping so that now that Nicholas can teach this class on his own, I can help him teach it, and one day maybe I can teach it. So that's a little bit about my background. PIO rules and responsibilities. So this is, I'll say this unit is a lot about the 95-5. So it's the roles and functions of the PIO on the day-to-day, 95% of the time, preparing for the 5% the emergency time. And to compare actions, it's going to take to work with the news media a little bit more of my speed. So day-to-day versus incident tasks. So we spend a lot of our time planning for things that may never happen, but if you don't plan for them, then when they happen, you're going to be stuck. So plan and execute a hurricane preparedness campaign. If you're in a more eastern county here, that's a big deal. Boom. How is your hurricane preparedness?
Well, the only issues we have is like, eventually the rain comes up there and we have flooding, so that's about it. But it doesn't impact me. So.
If it really impacts you, we're all in trouble here. If it gets all the way over there. I know it's one of those things from being a little bit, living most of your life more inland. Hurricanes, okay, we're gonna have some rain. Other people, eastern, they're like, oh no, we may destroy our entire side of the state. You gotta be prepared for that. Invite media to a newly remodeled EOC opening and tour. Wake County just did this. I have not seen it, but I remember seeing some of the coverage of that, and yeah, I've heard it's really nice. Planning company agency director to community events. An updated media list to include social media handles. That's changing. Obviously, on the emergency side, you're looking at issue hurricane evacuation instructions, set up staff and activate media briefing room, prepare directory for news conferences, and tweet out hurricane shelter information, things like that. Let's see here. See that there? Oh. That's yours.
Yeah, it's loud, I'll turn it down.
Not much traffic here, so this should be easy. But, yeah.
It's never easy.
Yeah, it's not.
I rode along with crews from EMS station number 14 downtown and engine and truck number 4 uptown.
It's hard to get out sometimes.
And they tell me that most of the time the most dangerous part of their job is just getting to the fire or emergency. Here, as we rode with them, you can see why.
That's right, they think they don't have time to just stop on a dime.
So the paramedics try to get to the people as quickly as possible, and anything that impedes our progress is very frustrating.
So put yourself in their shoes. Imagine what it's like to be behind the wheel of one of these big rigs struggling to get through traffic.
Go up one more block.
Their goal is to get to a call in under 9 minutes, so seconds count.
This is a bad intersection.
A patient's chances of surviving drop 10% with every minute that passes.
1 minute might make all the difference. We gotta go in that side. And if I'm tying up the traffic for 1 extra minute, that might mean that somebody's grandmother's not gonna make it to see tomorrow.
The obstacles are many. Like this car crossing right in front of our fire truck, plus blind intersections and crowded tunnels. So remember, it's the law. Pull over and stop.
And stop, yes.
But what about here?
This is where it's gonna get frustrating.
Nowhere to go. Well, everyone has to wait till it clears, including fire trucks and ambulances.
Thoughts, comments? Good piece, bad piece?
It's a great piece.
Great piece, good piece. What do you think in their 95% of their time in their career were they facing in their community that made them want to do and reach out to media to do this piece?
Get the awareness of it,
Awareness of what?
of like the situations.
Awareness of like the length of time it's taking emergency personnel to.
Why it takes so long, maybe, yeah. So they could be looking at a lot of people on social media complaining about why does it take so long for first responders to get here? Well, here's one of the reasons, because we can't get through traffic. Granted, urban environment might not be applicable to us on the rural side, but yeah.
It could be that the traffic's recently gotten worse because they've had a lot of economic development and growth of new neighborhoods.
Yep.
More lights getting put in, the streets are getting more crowded, or they could have just had a problem with efficiency where personnel weren't making it in time underneath that 9 minutes, so they reached out to communications to help.
Yeah, so things when we talk about your 95 to 5, which James will continue to talk about and we'll talk about throughout the course, is what are you seeing in your community? Like, that's not necessarily disaster related, right? This is day-to-day operations, right? How can we influence better actions from our targeted audience, which we'll describe how we target our audiences later. But one thing, what are you seeing in your community that you want to fix? Because now's the time to work on trying to fix it before that hurricane happens, or before the mass shooting happens, or the mass casualty happens. And how can you be influencing behaviors on a day-to-day basis? I don't know if James wants to show this video, but this is the exact same scenario in Cary. The Cary PIO came through this course, and they did the same thing. Yeah.
But flip that switch, because on the other side, that's also negative media from the other side, because they're only talking about 1% of the call volume that these people run that need those numbers. So now the public has seen, oh, we need to be 9 minutes everywhere, every time we get a call for service, whereas we know that's not true. So they're only talking about a small fraction of the calls they run. So it can also have negative impacts on the service as a whole.
It could. What was the meaning of the message? Most people are keying off of the 9 minute mark, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's another message that was being presented in that film? Get out of the way.
Move over is the law.
I think more so this piece was focusing on drivers need to get out of the way of emergency vehicles because they try and make it within 9 minutes. But your point is well taken. If you throw a number out there, you could be setting an expectation. So things to be thinking about when you do communicate.
Know your audience before you put it out there.
Mm-hmm.
Because most of the public is undereducated about that piece, so all they're getting from that message is
Okay.
9 minutes.
So if you're seeing the public uneducated about response times, what can you do to better educate people on a day-to-day basis and that 95%, that will help them understand that, yes, help's coming, no, it's not just around the corner. So things to think about. Sorry, yes, go ahead.
And this is a good example of, I usually give this advice to first responders or whatever, because you get into these situations where people don't understand what you do. They think they know, but they don't know. And things like this, like a media ride along, gets them into the actual field. They see what you're seeing, and you can have a good opportunity to put them in your shoes. You know, law enforcement can do the same thing by putting them through some training. You know, going through all kinds of things, scenarios, active shooter drills. I've seen this done in a lot of different places where you put them through it, and then you notice your reporting from those reporters changes. They kind of understand a little bit more of why you did this or why you couldn't say this. So you'll hear this a lot during this course. Give the right information to the right people at the right time. That's the most important thing. So looking at emergency situations, getting the right information to the right people at the right time can be a life or death situation. Gather, verify, coordinate, disseminate. So plan. Use the strategic communications model, which Nicholas will talk about later. I think next. Be prepared, have pre-written messages at the ready. So if you think about, you know that you're going to have this situation happen, you might go ahead and draft some things so that when you're in the moment, things are hitting you from everywhere. You're not having to sit down and recreate the wheel if it's already there. You mentioned we've had wastewater discharge issues every now and then here. Not really a super emergency thing, but we have to put out information about that when we have that discharge. We have like a template. It's just like plug the numbers in and send it out to the media. Then we don't have to sit down and say, okay, blah, 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 Franklin County, this, and this. It's all standard. All we need is the numbers to change. Maximize message exposure. Take advantage of all your communication channels, social media. There's a lot of different social media channels, probably since this was even developed, and things have changed. So you got Twitter's mentioned a lot through here, Twitter X, whatever, and it was super popular. And then it lost a bunch of people, and then Facebook has created Threads now. You have a bunch of different avenues now, and sometimes you can't really be everywhere, but you know, hitting the main thing, people still use Facebook. Look at, we do try to do a lot of video here because people tend to respond a little bit more to that. This has obviously changed a lot over the years. Back in the day, this type of role would say, okay, well, I need to get the information out. I need to send it to the newspaper, and the newspaper will tell everybody. But nobody reads the newspaper anymore. Only a very, very small group of usually older folks actually read the newspaper. So you're having to say, okay, well, TV news broadcast. Even that's changed in the last several years. People are going on the internet, social media to get their information. They want to get it on an app. You know, it's actually probably more difficult to reach more people nowadays than it used to be, because there was only fewer sources of information, so they all knew one thing. Now there's so many different things floating out there, it's really hard to catch all those audiences. Also consider your audience, who you're communicating with during experience of crisis. Talked about a little while ago, the different languages spoken, different disabilities, how to get the information to different people with that. And don't forget the messenger. A trusted messenger is just as important as the message. See this a lot. If you're not putting the message out there, other people will put the message out there, and they might not be putting out the correct message. They may not be putting out the message that you need for them to do. So that's important for you to be the one to be giving the message. Conduct interviews, so on-camera interview skills. This is actually a very interesting one. How many times have you been on camera? But media-wise?
Once.
Just once? And they didn't use it?
No.
Oh, okay.
The airplane crash. The airplane crash.
The glider crash?
The glider crash we had last year was actually my first time doing a real on-camera interview in that situation.
I've never had one. Never had the opportunity. Most of the times since I've been here, I need to put somebody else in front of the camera. Because sometimes it's more appropriate for the assistant county manager over Parks and Rec to do that interview. And we'll get into a little bit of that. But if you are on camera, try to think about what you want. You want to have your message there. So it says use sound bites. Make sure you get that little nutshell of what you need out there and keep going back to it.
Does anybody remember a soundbite from the video we watched?
What?
The soundbite from the video we just watched about the first responders moving over. What's one thing you do remember from that video?
Put yourself behind the wheel.
Annoyance side.
Put yourself behind the wheel of the first responders, yeah? Anyone else key off on that could be someone's grandmother?
Oh yeah.
Those are sound bites. Those are short little information clips that you can push out there that will help drive home your message.
Yeah. So it'll stick with you, something that'll hit home, people can relate with. Make eye contact. I'll say sometimes, a lot of times reporters won't say, okay, look right into the camera. No, they'll usually say, no, I'm gonna stand over here, you just look at me, we're gonna get that side angle. Use non-distracting gestures. So yeah, you don't wanna be up there saying, all right, we have all this stuff happening, because people are gonna be going, I don't know what he's saying, is he swatting a fly or something? What's happening? Gestures are good to have, limit them, and know when not to answer. That's a big one because sometimes you can get going with reporters and just keep going, and you might need it to stop. Pauses, I'll say this, awkward silence, don't be afraid of awkward silence. That's a technique. When I was a reporter, we had a missing person come out of Greenville, South Carolina's car was found in Abbeville County, South Carolina, out in the field. And Cops and Courts reporter was busy doing something else, so they said, hey, call the sheriff of Abbeville, find out information. So, okay. So I call up Sheriff Ray Watson. And it's a rural county in South Carolina. He's this nice guy, I'll just talk to you, ask him what's going on. Oh yeah, we found his car. He's out in the field. Apparently it's registered to this person. Okay, why did you find it? Well, we had sled, they brought the chopper and the dogs, and we were assisting with them. Okay, yeah, all right, okay. And I'm sitting here writing, because I don't write very fast, and I wasn't recording, so I'm like, make sure I remember all this. And there's a pause. You know what I really think is going on? Oh, go ahead, keep going. And then he just kept going and going and going, and I just sat there and listened. And he just went on, and I'm thinking, there's a point at which I'm like, maybe you should stop. You really should stop. Being someone who's going to this world and being a reporter, thinking, if I were you, I would stop talking right now. But he just kept going. Sometimes it's good for context, but sometimes that awkward pause, people don't like it. They feel like they need to fill it with space. Because then you may start getting conversational and talk, and then next thing you know, you've given out all this information that you probably shouldn't have given at this time. So think about what not to answer, what not to say. A lot of you said that that's part of this course is that. The other thing is, if you give too much, people may say, okay, well, there was a small little other thing over here, and they're going to key on that. That's the story when you really needed it to be this other part of the story. But they like that. That sounds better to them. And that's what you're stuck with. Public speaking skills, use your voice effectively, and engage the audience. So this is a little bit opposite of this, obviously. You can move around, you can use a little bit more gestures, and engage the audience. Walk over to Aspen, who looks like she's about to fall asleep.
Hey now.
I've been told my voice can put people to sleep.
Good reading.
My wife will be like going to sleep, and I'm like, I was talking to you. Well, it just soothes me. When she had trouble, when she was pregnant, sleeping, I almost was like, maybe you should just record yourself reading a book. It'll put her to sleep. Engage your audience. You know, in a setting like this, you know, you want to make eye contact. I had a professor in college, and he didn't make very good eye contact. He was actually a mock trial coach. So he would do this thing where he'd almost teach and he'd be like, and he's looking nowhere near him. He's over here, and it's like, don't make eye contact. They're not going to kill you. They're not bad people. Just look at them in the eyes. We'll get off. Starting to get into a little bit of this coach speakers. So, subject matter experts, policymakers, managers, create a message map. It's not something I'm super. Yeah, you could jump in on message map. You're a message map.
All right,
person.
so message mapping.
Message map person.
Message mapping. Let's see. Anyone here use a message map or know what a message map is before I start hands pointing? All right. All right. So message mapping. Think about some of the special events that we have nationally, like Firefighter Appreciation Week, or Fire Prevention Week, or Winter Weather Week, or stuff like that. Usually, National Weather Service will push out specific days that we're going to talk about certain information. So the best example I have is when we talk about Fire Prevention Week, where Monday we'll talk about maybe stop, drop, and roll. Tuesday we'll talk about changing out batteries and smoke detectors. Wednesday is don't play with ethyl methyl death, and Wednesday is, you know, don't use gasoline to blow up your friends, stuff like that. And so it maps out what you're going to talk about each day and what information you're going to push out via social media or press releases, or what videos you're going to produce. Also, it's a way that you can share that information across your county or your jurisdiction, so that whatever's happening, the county manager will say, oh, by the way, we're going to cut the ribbon on this thing, but it's also, you know, fallen police officers week, and we want to thank our police officers. So it's a way to get everybody on the same page and pushing out your information. We call that a message map. You literally just put it on board or map it out on what you want to talk about, when you want to talk about. That's message map. I think it's a great way to stay organized, and ensuring that everyone's on the same page on what they are communicating, but also helping you track what you want to say on any given week.
They're very helpful when they are creative. So NCEM just sent out, what did we just do?
Winter weather?
Yeah, there was no message map for that. So I had to create all this stuff. So I'm like, I just wanted to plug and play based on their message map to put out some stuff. Let's see, go right talking points that align with that message map, provide background information, anticipate difficult questions. So we had our assistant county manager do an interview for one of our upcoming parks that we're in the process of building, called Epson Park. It's in the northern part of the county. There's not a lot up there, but we have a lot of land that's sat there for about 20 years or so, and we've never gotten any traction building the park. We just got a Part F grant, so they're gonna get that rolling. So WRL came out and wanted to do a story. And I said, okay, so who? Okay, this is the county manager over that department. So I said, you're gonna do this? And he goes, I don't really wanna do this. Nope, you're the guy. You're the guy. You're the guy we're gonna do. So I drove him up there, and the whole time I'm like, okay, think about this. You got your numbers. You know, here's the key things you want to stick to, and that's fine. And he gets up there. He's a little nervous on camera. I'm still working on him on that. But sometimes you have to kind of coach them, make them try to alleviate their concerns, make them feel a little bit more comfortable. You know, it's not that bad. Even if you're sitting there going, man, they did terrible. No, you did good. You did great. We work on a few things, but it's fine. Because you're going to know the next time they're going to be like, no, I just bombed that other one. I don't want to do it. No, sometimes you have to reinforce that positivity and still work on them. But make sure they have the information and that background information. So I've done a lot more of the coaching speaker side of this on campus. Working with the media, so I've got to do this, work with the media, and then work as the media, and then work with the media again. And if you've been in those roles, I know we have more people with media background in this class than the class I went through. So I think I was one of the only ones in a class of 40. Building relationships with the news media is a great thing. It is a great thing. When I was in politics as a communications director, this is where we lived, because we wanted to be on the news as much as we could for name recognition purposes. So whatever they needed, we tried to get. Even if it wasn't something we were involved with, we tried to find and help them with information. So we became a real trusted source. So when something was happening, you would have that reporter go, hey, it has nothing to do with you or your guy, but you know anything about this? Oh, let me get you some information and try to do that. And that built that relationship. So when we did want to do some stuff, they were more keen to do that. One of the big things is this media wants and needs access. That's something I think I've come across more and more with people is if you've never worked in the media and you're in this role, you don't necessarily understand that they just need the information. They're not trying to come after you. They're not, it's not as adversarial. A lot of times it's like, hey, blah, 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 this happened, I need some information to get in the paper. Let me try to get you that information. They're not trying to do a huge expose on whatever. They want to get something in the paper. Having been a print reporter, I remember going into those meetings and the editor goes, all right, what you got for this week? Okay, I'm gonna do this, and oh, you're gonna have to do more stories. You're gonna do like a 14-inch story on blah, blah, blah. So go find stories. Okay, so I'm hitting up contacts saying, what about this, what about that? I'm just trying to write a story, just trying to get a story in the paper. So that I can have content for the readers, get my editor off my back. I'm not trying to win an award over this. There are those cases. There's a little bit long term, but you're not necessarily trying to burn every bridge you can as a reporter. You're trying to build those bridges. So if you understand that they need the information, and you can work with them enough for them to know that when you have that information to give to them and give that to them, sometimes in the law enforcement world, all right, writing. How many like writing? 1, 2, 3, 4, couple. Okay, that's or like or love writing. How many hate writing? Okay, it's a love and hate relationship for you. Okay. Well, writing is very important. It's one of those things. I don't know. I mean, I probably wouldn't say I was that great of a writer. Well, around the time when I went to grad school, became a reporter, I think it improved. Being a reporter definitely improved because my editors made sure it improved. I actually still, if you go to my office right now, on my bookshelf, I have a just a legal pad, piece of paper, and it says canceled, which is 1L, canceled. Moats, M-O-A-T-E-S, who's the vice chairman of county council. And a couple other things on there. More is greatly better than over. And a couple other things, and that's the things that more than once my editor came to me and said, I'm not going to tell you again. There's only 1L in canceled. If you do it again, if you misspell Vice Chairman Moat's last name again, you were going to personally call him and apologize. I did actually. He made me get on the phone, and he just laughed. He said, it's no big deal, but apparently he made it a big deal in the past to the editor. It might have been between those two. Any AP style people would know more than versus over. That's an older rule. I think they've done away with the rule. I was required to keep that rule, so I will fight that to the day I die. That you have to do more over than over. Over is a spatial quality. So go over to this table. There's not over 100 people. There's more than 100 people. That's what it is. But we're not going to talk about that too much. And this one, this unit describe different public information written products. I didn't like the word products that much. I'm getting more used to it now. Apply effective news release writing guidance and adapt and repurpose written media products for social media. So what kind of written products are there? Two different avenues of written products. Do you know what those are? Yes. So external products, that's going to be the things that go out to the media, to the public, not the general public. We'll do something in a minute for that. Internal products are the things that you do on the inside that help you, help the process on the internal side. It's not anything that goes out. Talking points are an internal product. I'm going to mention that, and I think we got to mention it a few more times. It may or may not be on the test. You may or may not have, a lot of you missed that part. Talking points are an internal product. All right, let's look at some external products. So, statements. What's a statement?
Less detailed than a press release?
I think of, to me, when I think of a statement, it's almost like it's a quote. It's a quote of some person. That's a lot of times the way I use it. Is if I get a reporter says blah blah blah, and I'll say, okay, here's the response from County Manager Kim Denton, and it's just 1, 2, or 3 paragraphs explaining whatever. Think of that as a statement. It's not. It's informal. It's more of a one person specific. Let's see, news releases. We'll get to writing some of those in a minute. These are factual reports. News releases, if you think about, in the past, people used to use that as the single primary method of communication. And I have to battle some of that thought of, okay, so we have new carpet in the training room, and we want people to know about it. Well, let's send a press release. Okay, is it newsworthy? Do I think the news will cover the new carpet in the training room? Is it worth doing that? Maybe we do a video. Maybe we do something on our own to make it good. Not necessarily a news release, because a news release is something that you're essentially trying to release to get the media's interest in a topic. Now, in emergency management, you're looking for that information. But even on a general level, you're trying to pique the news' interest. One of the things with a news release too, if you send out a news release, expect, if you want media coverage, to get a response from the news to say, hey, I'd like to interview somebody on camera, or hey, I want more information on this. If you get those and you go, oh, well, we're not providing anything, then they're going to be less likely to cover you. So you got to be ready for when they do that. And a lot of times, I'll see people say, well, let's send out a press release on that. Okay, do you have somebody ready to go to talk to the media? If not, then let's think that through before we send it out. Because once we alert the media and they get interested, they're going to want some answers, and if we can't take forever to give them those responses. So news releases typically are a little bit more developed. A fact sheet, that's a little bit more, I'd say almost data-driven or fact-based, bullet point type things. Media advisory, I had to do a couple of these more or less, because they say, I want to send a press release out about this ribbon cutting we're having. Okay? Do we want the media to attend? Do we want the media to cover that? Oh, yeah. Well, why don't we send them a media advisory, let them come and cover it, and then we'll do a press release after the fact to kind of cover if they don't.
Think of it as a party invitation.
Yeah.
Media advisory, come to my party. Press release, what happened at my party.
Exactly. Let's see. Talking points. We're an external. I looked down at the wrong one. Look at web and social media products. So this is a lot bigger nowadays. Whether you're gonna put something, maybe a news article on your website, make some social media posts, public service announcements. If you do some of those, most of our on-scene with emergency management videos are pretty much public service announcements with tips or things to educate on what they do. Newsletter articles. If you do some people still do a print newsletter. I did one in my time at Creedmoor. They did a quarterly newsletter. They had some turnover, so it was, I think they did one in 2021, and that was mine. And they may have done a handful since I left, but they actually budgeted for sending a newsletter to every address in the city. Nowadays, when I got here, I said, well, you can do that. Let's just start building an email list. Get people to sign up for an email, do that. Brochures, flyers, handouts, things like that. Pretty traditional standard products. So, internal products. So, key messages, talking points, the internal products. Talking points are good for your speakers when you're coaching them, for staying on topic if yourself knows where these things are things that will help those on the internal side know what to say when they're speaking on the external side. Other written products, position papers, that's a little bit.
Why believe what we believe.
See what?
Why we believe what we believe.
Yes. We don't see a lot of that though. Position papers, yeah, that's a little bit more maybe federal, stuff like that. Operation tactical backgrounders, back pocket information. So, some of this stuff is good to have if you need to prep the media for like biographies about the people. So it's good to have some information. So if you're doing a press conference, lean on some of that background information to say, okay, well, we're gonna have Nicholas Thorpe, our emergency management director, come up and speak to you. He joined the county sometime in 2022, and he has a background in state and local and DC mayor background in emergency management, blah, 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 blah.
What's back pocket information?
I've lost my background information, it's not back there.
I'm very familiar with that term.
Like the information you don't necessarily need up front, but you have it like.
It's information you don't want to share, but you're ready to if you need to.
Right.
Yeah.
What are some pluses and minuses of having back pocket information?
Do you have a better understanding of the situation?
Well, I have information that I can share immediately if I'm provoked or asked, right? I'm not going to share the average response times for EMS in Franklin County if no one asks me for it. But if someone asks me for it and I pull it out of my back pocket real quick and I give it to them, what may that also look like?
Withholding information.
I'm withholding information. Use back pocket information, sparingly, right? It could get you in trouble, but it will also keep you out of trouble. Talk about what you want to talk about.
Yeah, some of that too could be okay, here's the questions they're asking. I anticipate they may ask for this other information, so we're going to hang on to that and have it ready, and if they do ask, we're ready to provide, but what they've asked for right now is not necessarily that information. So one of the big things in the writing chapter is going to deal with news releases. So news releases, press releases, and these are, it's hard to find a very good, very well written news release sometimes, because it depends on some agencies, the people sending them out haven't had much training in this. You get smaller governments where it might be like the manager is actually doing this, and they may have gotten like one little in MPA school, they might have talked about it for like 5 minutes or something like that. So you get, I've seen some where the news release was like one paragraph altogether. Or you get this sometimes in law enforcement, where it will be when you like write an incident report. So it's, at 8 a.m., I write officer so-and-so arrived at blah, 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 to see the observation type things. Well, with news releases, you have to kind of go through and organize all of your facts together and figure out, what are the most important things. So we talk about the inverted pyramid, and that's the standard for press releases. I will say this, it was the standard for news writing. My editor wasn't so keen on it. It was kind of a inverted pyramid plus, maybe a little bit, he allowed us to go a little bit more to make it a better narrative so that it wasn't too rigid, which I've always appreciated because I felt like things flowed better, people could understand it. But inverted pyramid, you want to open with a strong lead. And you hear the term all the time, don't bury the lead. When you see those things and you say, okay, well, I'm reading this news release and it says, blah, 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 or reading this thing that's put out, and it says there's a bomb at the hospital. Okay? Well, they wait until there's 5 paragraphs in to tell you there's no bomb and it's all clear. Well, if you don't read 5 paragraphs down, you're not going to know, oh my goodness, everything's fine. Burying the lead. So you want to answer, you see, with the 5 W questions. Does anybody know what the 5 W questions is? All right.
Who, what, where, when.
Yep. Who, what, where, when, and how. And then, you have your boilerplate language, social media. I think ours says stay up to date with information on Franklin County by going to franklincounty.nc.gov and sign up for email updates.
Boilerplate's that information that you stick on the bottom of everything that says
What a great place to work on.
Franklin County is located in Northeast North Carolina. Follow us on social media. It's a little bit of the background information. Youngsville Police Department has been serving the community since 1789, whatnot,
Yeah.
And that should be on everything you push.
Yeah.
Should have boilerplate information.
Yeah. And it could be and it's a way too to promote your place. I will say, I do vary from that a little bit, depending on the media release. Sometimes you leave it off just because of the situation. I saw one where a scenario where it was like a 10-year-old kid was hit by a drunk driver who was an off-duty police officer for the city, and the whole thing was constructed about answering questions related to that, and then it was like, the city of is a great place to work, and it was like, maybe we shouldn't put that language in there, considering the gravity of what that situation was. But for the most part, it at least tells you it tells people what where you are and what you want to put out there. So inverted pyramid is exactly what it sounds like. You put the most important facts on the top, and then you go to your supporting facts, and your less important, and then the background information. So, anybody have experience in news release writing? Okay. Anyone have any news release writing experience that hasn't ever worked in media? Okay. So that's a very important thing. So you want to say in your scenario, the most important fact first, and then develop it out a little bit more. If you read the stuff that we put out here, it is a little bit more of an inverted pyramid plus. I mean, we're going to put the lead of that one sentence that sort of encapsulates the whole thing, and then develop it out a little bit more with less important information as you go. One thing to, and this is really bad in the emergency management world and law enforcement, any type of responder world, is acronyms or shortened versions of things. So we say, I'm trying to think of one we use a lot.
EOC.
EOC, yeah, EOC. So, we're going to move this training class from the Franklin County EOC to Franklin Plaza. Well, people are going to say, what is the EOC? Anytime you're going to use one of those types of acronyms, you can use those in news releases. But the first time you use it, you need to say what it is. Emergency Operations Center, in parentheses, EOC. Then that lets people know that, okay, when they refer to EOC, that's what they're referring to. It's best not to use them, but, especially if you have long things and those acronyms shorten it up, it does help put it, at least you put it forward first to say that. Like I've said before about, you see a lot in investigations, law enforcement, the 800 hours, Unit 163 was dispatched on a signal 23 to 159 Normandy Avenue. Upon arrival, conducted a 360-degree assessment and discovered a 2-story ordinary with fire on the seaside. Let's go. That is not a good news release right there. I have.
It's an okay size of it. It's not a news release.
Yeah. So I used to get this a lot when I was at Creedmoor. The police department would send over their release, and I would rewrite the whole thing. And the police chief, he'd go, and the guys, like the investigators, they're like, "You're just tearing them up." We're like, "Why is he rewriting?" And he goes, "Listen, the guy knows what he's doing." And one of the things is that helps with this, especially if you go with like an inverted pyramid, maybe with a little bit more explanation, is for lazier or less, less resourced news agencies will sometimes just take what you have written, copy, and paste it, which is great for you. Not necessarily, I'll put my journalist hat back on, I'm not necessarily as happy with that, but for that part, since I've been here, the Wake Weekly, which I mentioned earlier, for the most part, they copy and paste on this one. Sometimes the local paper here does, if they don't want to do a story on their own. I remember we never did that in the newspaper, but I rewrote their press releases into kind of what I write now. And so that's why, it's helpful to get that information out there. How many of you know what Associated Press style is, or AP style? Okay. Yeah. So it's a great guideline, and I would say you should use it as much as you can. I will always do AP style, and then when it goes up, it'll come back down when things changed. I will tell you right now, I'm in an ongoing battle with the county manager over capitalizing county when it's not Franklin County. And, we back and forth. I'll send a press release up and I'll say, when I refer to the county, lowercase c. I'll come back, uppercase. I'm like, lowercase. And we'll go back and forth on that. And that's just a thing. I tried to get my editors to back me up on that, and they said, it's kind of a small thing, and it's not really that big a deal, but I still stick by that. We'll come back to news releases in a minute for our activity, but talking points are internal products. They're short, easy to understand statements that reinforce your key message. So think about a brief 1 or 2 sentence answer to a basic question that might be asked. Memorable statements to make your audience visualize your main point. Something that's quotable. One of those sound bites, as we talked about earlier. Written for the ear, not for the eye. I like that. So think about, having those canned statements, those talking points of your situation, so that you can keep going back to it. trying to think of a good talking point. I'm drawing a blank. Let's see if there's
All right, you remember the video that we watched about in Pittsburgh and everything that was said? How long do you think it took them to film that? It was a 2-minute clip?
2 hours.
Hours?
1, 2 hours.
Maybe a day or two? I mean, the guy rode around with the fire department and EMS agency. All right, so 2 days worth of filming, 16 hours of film, brought down to 3 minutes. How long do you think they talked to the EMS chief? Do you remember what he said? He said, yes, to pull over on the side of the road, it's the law. We want to keep everyone safe, right? That's your talking point, right? You might be talking for a half hour. The news media is going to shorten that down to 30 seconds if you're lucky. Where's the few words that you can say that they're going to take? When we had the plane crash here last year, I spoke to the reporter for about 3 or 4 minutes, and my talking point was, we were prepared for this all along. And so my talking point was, yes, we have airplanes in the sky around Franklin County all the time. And we practice on a daily basis on being prepared for when planes fall out of the sky and crash. But it's those short little phrases that you say that if the media takes nothing else, whatever you're going to say, they can take that little piece. And you talk in sound bites, so it's short, brief sentences. So if they cut 2/3 of your sentence away, whatever you said, the remainder is still useful and gets your point across. Does that make sense? We'll watch a lot of videos and you'll start hearing the sound bites and how that cadence works. And that's something that you can coach your principals on or practice yourself in the mirror saying. It'll help you prepare for those interviews. One of my biggest problems is I drone. I just drone on and on. I just keep talking because I don't know when to stop, and it gets very monotone, and I don't know when. I think that was sort of situational funny.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead.
His text to me on that glider crash was, I'm gonna do a stand-up. Basically, responders doing responding work. Or responders doing responding. I'm like, okay, great. Do you want me to give them a good example of bury the lead?
Yes.
I won't say where this came from.
Right.
But it says, this was, we wanted to inform you that we received an anonymous email threat this past hour. The email stated that there is a bomb in each of our schools that will blow up in a few hours. We consulted with our law enforcement partners to move swiftly to investigate this threat. After making contact with state and federal agencies, it has been determined that the IP address associated with the threat was located internationally and has been used to make similar threats across the United States and at a number of North Carolina school districts.
Stop. What are you thinking? There's a bomb at the school?
There was a moment, there was a lead up right there. You were setting up to be like, hey, it was okay, it was fake, and that just kept going. And you're like, gosh.
All right.
That being said, the sheriff's office has determined that this is not a credible threat.
That means
Additional law enforcement visit our sites to conduct walkthroughs, but we have no indication that there is any credible threat to our school campuses at this time.
So you should have been here the day that was released.
Did you write it out?
No.
That was written about people with PhDs and master's degrees.
Yep.
We got cut completely out of that one.
Because that was ours. I remember. Didn't they come out your day?
No, not that one.
Let me check.
No, it wasn't me.
Nope, that was.
No, but I did go see if you still had your old press release up on Facebook. And,
Yes. That's why it's good to have templates.
Yes.
You just throw it on there and change the name and the date.
Mm-hmm.
Send it out. It's best to do that.
All right.